With this being a prequel to the Dune movies, I was already sold, but now I really want to find out how House Harkonnen goes from this to that. So we're going to break down the entire first episode of Dune Prophecy and explain exactly why and how Desmond got his powers, and it's because he's the...
Listen again!
So give this video a thumbs up and let's just dive into the breakdown. The series starts off over 10,000 years before the birth of Paul Atreides and the first Dune movies. The opening sequence is a dope and eerie battle between humans and the thinking machines, aka AI. What's dope about this opening sequence is it sets up the downfall of machines while also showing us the first vestiges of human evolution in this world. It's in this opening sequence that we're introduced to the Reverend Mother Rakella, the founder of the Truth Slayers. It's during the war between humans and machines she starts to evolve and develop her abilities. And guys, instead of calling it the war between humans and machines for the rest of the video, I'm going to call it the Butlerian Jihad. That's what it's called in the books. So from this moment forward, we're going to go on and call it the Butlerian Jihad. It's after the Butlerian Jihad, she creates the Sisterhood of the Truth Sayers, who are the precursors to what we know eventually become the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood in the Dune movies. But at this point in the series, you can tell that they're still new because Valeria Harkonnen is the first Truth Slayer to actually use the voice. I also don't think they have any of their other abilities just yet because they are in the beginning stages of developing their powers, and this is the first step. Remember, Dune takes place 10,000 years in the future, so it's going to take them about 10,000 years to get to that point in power. Which ties in earlier to what I said about humans evolving during the war against the machines. And that's why spice is so important in this world. Not as important as you forgetting to hit that subscribe button, but I think spice is a close second. And that's why the Bene Gesserits want to have a monopoly on it. Because don't get it twisted, all this is a power play for control of spice. We could also say it's a power play for control, but in the Dune universe, whoever controls spice controls everything essentially. So when the Reverend Mother Rakella died, which left a power vacuum that kind of split the sisterhood in half, it makes me wonder, what if the Truth Sayers end up dying out and the Zealots are the ones who end up actually becoming the Bene Gesserits later on? They would have to learn the voice, but because Varia Harkonnen used the voice to assassinate Mother Dorothea, who was Rakella's direct granddaughter, as well as the leader of the Zealots, so I'm sure she has people loyal to her even though she's dead, just waiting in the shadows for the right time to strike. But what Varia did, essentially solidifying House Harkonnen as one of the ruling powers in the universe, from now all the way to the time of Paul Atreides. We then flash forward 30 years and we're introduced to the character of Desmond Hart. Desmond is a veteran of 12 tours on Arrakis, meaning this man knows Arrakis. Not only that, but what I know about Dune, the more time you spend around Arrakis, the more time you spend around spice, that's when your abilities and your evolution start. Your body actually starts to metaphysically change. If you guys notice, his eyes are blue but not fully blue, showing that he's partially deeply affected by spice. Not to the point where he's at the level of the Fremen, who live, breathe, and sleep spice, but enough so that he has spice coursing through his veins, which makes what happened at the end make that much more sense. I think Desmond is the first Kwisatz Haderach, the first chosen one.
Listen again!
The first male with the same powers as the Truth Slayers, aka the Bene Gesserit, and the first hit at his abilities is when we're first introduced to him when he's talking to the Emperor, and the Emperor's Truth Slayer Kasha is trying to use her powers against him. I think during that interaction he was lying to her, and he was able to use his powers to overpower her Truth Slayer abilities. I think there's something he knows and he's not telling us, because during the wedding ceremony, when the 9-year-old Pruitt pulled out that thinking machine toy, everybody freaked out except for him. Not only did he not freak out, he was the one who took it out, showing that even though the Butlerian Jihad ended over 116 years ago, Desmond would not have been alive during that time period, but he seems totally unfazed by the thinking machine, almost as though he's seen it before or he's seen something similar. And it's foreshadowing of him using his powers later on in the episode to burn Pruitt alive. I want to take some time to really dive into what I think happened. I think that entire ending scene with the Emperor as well as him burning Pruitt alive go hand in hand. He wanted to show the Emperor that the Bene Gesserit was behind everything. When the Emperor is watching the footage of what happened to him, he called the Shai-Hulud. Desmond summoned the giant worm on Arrakis. The worm stared at him and did not kill him. The same thing happened to Paul Atreides in the first Dune movie. Like I said, I think he's the first Kwisatz Haderach, and the worm kind of confirmed that by not attacking and killing him, instead submerging him in the sand, having him bathe in more spice. And with his new abilities, he was able to burn the boy alive, which also caused him to burn Kasha alive. Kasha is the Truth Slayer to the Emperor. Throughout the episode, we know she's been manipulating him and weakening the Emperor's base. At this point in the story, The Emperor is weak as hell. Compare that to Dune, where the Emperor is the most powerful man in the universe, and you start to piece together why this is a prequel. Whatever plan the Truth Slayers have is going to fail, and I think that's what's going to transform them from the Truth Slayers to the Bene Gesserit sisterhood, because their plan right now is 10,000 years too early. They want to install someone with their abilities on the throne so they can directly control the universe. We know that doesn't happen for another 10,000 years until Paul comes around, which puts the princess in an interesting position. The princess is being trained to be the perfect being. She's the heir to the empire, and she's going to be a Truth Slayer. They were able to manipulate the Emperor to the point where he married his only daughter off to a 9-year-old boy. The reason the boy being 9 is so important to the Truth Slayers is because that gives them 10 years to train her into becoming one of their own. That way they have direct control of the empire. That is the Harkonnen way. Even though the Harkonnens are not yet who they become in the Dune movies, their quest for power and vengeance is always there, and Valeria is showing us that. Even though Valeria says she's acting in the best interest of the universe based on the late Reverend Mother's wishes, I can't help but think that this is just revenge for her family, because House Atreides not only stole the glory, so did the Emperor's family. During the wedding, during the whole thinking machine debacle, the Emperor's wife, the Empress, made a whole big deal about the fact that House Carino are the ones who stopped the Butlerian Jihad. But in the opening sequence, it was only House Atreides and House Harkonnen that was mentioned. And in the book series, they mainly focus on it was a combination of House Harkonnen and House Atreides. But through some political machinations and propaganda, House Carino was able to take most of the glory, followed by House Atreides, which puts House Harkonnen on the bottom of the totem pole. They even portrayed the head of House Harkonnen as a schmuck. Compared to the steampunk ball-head creatures they become later on in the Dune movies, right now they have no power. And I think what's going to happen is Valeria's plans are gonna fail. She's gonna go to war with Desmond. I feel like that's gonna happen. Once she fails, this is a prequel after all. We know she's gonna fail because Paul Atreides is the Kwisatz Haderach. She's then going to go back to House Harkonnen and rebuild that up. It's not lost on me that during the episode, they said House Harkonnen for the 4th time has requested a Truth Slayer, and she's not sending one to her family, while her and her sister are both Truth Slayers. I think whatever defeat happens to her in this series, it's gonna set up the law that no man should have this power, because the Bene Gesserit made such a big deal about Paul having the ability in the first Dune movie, and I think that's a direct response to Desmond having this ability and the war he's about to wage against them, because he feels that they are in control. At one point it was the machines, and now it's the Bene Gesserits, and he's a religious fanatic. So he believes we should leave it up to the god. Kind of like his character in the show Raised by Wolves. If you haven't seen that, you should check it out. It's also on HBO Max. Pretty dope. And the power he used is different than any other power we've seen before. So it makes me wonder, is it something with the males using this power? Because when Paul had his powers manifested completely different than anything we've seen from the female Bene Gesserits as well. This opening episode lays a lot of different foundations for what's to come this season. Kasha, the Truth Slayer that was assigned to the Emperor, died by burning, which Valeria Harkonnen sees as a sign, the same sign that the Reverend Mother told her to look out for. But instead of it being a sign that her plan should go forward, it's a warning to her, but she can't see it, which goes to show the scope of power that Desmond has. The fact that he's able to affect her from across the galaxy and burn her while he was still on the homeworld of the Emperor just goes to show that they're in over their heads. And I don't think Varia can see straight at this moment, because she's now becoming the very zealot that she was trying to fight against. With the 9-year-old prince dead, there's no reason for the princess to marry him now, which pumps the brakes on the plan to install the princess on the throne. With the leaked footage that the Emperor has seen, I think he's going to become one of those fanatics who believes in the gods, especially the Shai-Hulud, the worm. And maybe, just maybe, he might be on the lookout for the Lisan al-Gaib.
Listen again!
There's a lot of different mysteries to unpack here, and we're going to be unpacking them all this season, the same way I'm breaking down the second season of Silo episode by episode. So if you guys want another show that's just as dope as Dune Prophecy, check out Silo and some of my other videos in the description box below. And guys, that's my thoughts on it. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this in the comment section below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up.
But the history the Atreides wrote was spun out of lies. And I, Valia Harkonnen, would set out to change it.